In the late 1970s, when Dallas first aired, it was met with mixed reviews and relatively low viewership. It seems the world wasn't quite ready for its breed of primetime soap opera drama. The first season was a 5-part miniseries, whereas the next season would balloon to a full 24 episodes. It wasn't until the season finale of Season 3 that the show experienced monumental success and popularity. Who shot JR became the question that the world needed answered. It was a cliffhanger moment that became a global phenomenon. Audiences would have to wait all summer to see if J.R. Ewing would survive the attack, and whodunit. It was pure marketing gold. Spoiler alert, it was Kristen Sheppard. Ratings for the show subsequently skyrocketed, with the help of an economy that was in a bit of a recession, which meant that many people stayed in on Friday nights and watched the television instead of going out to the cinema or theater. Dallas became the go-to weekend entertainment for over 100 million people who tuned in to see what scandalous shenanigans would go down next. Even though the show would wrap up on May 3, 1991, Dallas proved to be a forerunner of sorts for things to come. Following its popularity, several nighttime soaps, such as Dynasty and Knots Landing, a Dallas spinoff, took pages from its playbook and found success with the formula. Dallas would even see a reboot in 2012 when TNT picked it up for another 3 seasons, bringing back a big chunk of the original cast and characters. To pay homage to the show that started a cultural phenomenon, let's take a look at 9 head-scratching, eyebrow-raising, and shocking facts you never knew about the Ewing family and their troubled associates. Stick around until the end of the video to see a glimpse of the mind-blowing Dallas video game that was made back in 1984. You're not going to want to miss that. It's an oddity to marvel at. Facts Verse presents, Did Dallas End Communism? 9 facts about the Dallas TV show. But first, do us a little favor and tap that like button, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications by tapping the bell icon. Dallas should have been called Houston. Originally, the show's creator, David Jacobs, submitted his concept to Lorimar Television's executive producer, Michael Filerman, under the name Houston. This name would have been a more appropriate title, given the fact that Dallas was known for banking more than it was associated with the oil industry. Houston, on the other hand, was almost synonymous with oil. Filerman, however, thought the name Dallas had a better ring to it than Houston, and the name stuck. Dynasty was the classier alternative to Dallas. In the mid-1980s, viewers regarded Dynasty as the swish, posh, and classier show of the 2-night soaps. Characters in Dynasty were always seen wearing fancy fashion and extravagant jewelry, even for something as mundane as breakfast. Everyone in that show was much more image-conscious than the cast of characters in Dallas. That's not saying much, because everyone in both shows was fairly self-absorbed and wealthy. Dynasty was one of the most exuberant shows on TV at the time. Every set was dripping in excess. The budget for costume design had to have nearly broken the bank. It's hard to think that either show could really be called classy, though, given the fact that the plot never was particularly highbrow. Larry Hagman had a drinking problem. During the filming of the show, Larry would drink constantly. He would later claim in an interview with Ultimate Dallas it was very common for him to drink 5 bottles of champagne a day and still never get drunk. When he and Patrick Duffy, who played JR's little brother Bobby, would go out for lunch around midday, they would have 4 or 5 more drinks before coming back to work. He didn't know that he was quickly developing a drinking problem. Unfortunately, the bottle would eventually get the better of him. In 2012, he passed away from cancer, not too long after having a liver transplant to combat the damage done from his alcoholism. Sue Ellen wasn't initially going to be a major role. The pilot episode wouldn't even give a name to Linda Gray's character. All we knew is that she was JR's wife. Producers wanted to cast a different actress for the role, but she impressed them so much they elevated her character's importance in the show and made her a main role. Linda Gray would eventually get tired of her character's perpetual alcoholism, which she felt had become a little played out, and left the show in 1989. Jacobs and Hagman didn't conceive JR as being a bad guy. In fact, JR was envisioned as being more of a neutral character more than anything. He was a businessman in the oil industry, and he had a laundry list of unscrupulous bedfellows, but at the end of the day, he wanted to provide for his family. He certainly wasn't the most pleasant individual to ever grace the TV screen, and he did end up getting shot, so the argument of his malevolent nature could be made. But David Jacobs never intended for his character to be purely sinister. Dallas potentially had a hand in the fall of communism. Dallas had worldwide appeal. It made its way east all the way out to Russia and Romania, 2 former nations of the communist bloc, the USSR. President Nicolae Ceausescu, the dictator of Romania, would lift restrictions on Western media and allow Dallas to be run in his country. Apparently, he was duped and convinced by someone that the show was in some way carrying an anti-capitalist message. Larry Hagman said in an interview with the AP, he thought that once Romanians saw all the flashy things the rich Ewing family had, they developed lustful greed for what capitalism could provide. So maybe it was not just coincidence that President Ceausescu and his wife were offed in 1989 and the former Soviet country's inhabitants began to experience newfound freedoms after his death. Another scandalous side note generally related to the matter is the fact that Larry Hagman allowed the communist Russian oil company Lukoil to use his image for advertisements for years in exchange for a sizable chunk of cash. This was a fact he wasn't proud of and brought with him to his grave before it became fully known. JR's survival depended on his contract. When Hagman's character was shot at the end of Season 3 episode A House Divided, it provided producers and the network an excellent out just in case Hagman's contract negotiations got out of hand. If they could come to some kind of agreement, then JR would live. If they couldn't see eye to eye, then they could kill him off the show or replace him with a different actor. Alas, following the show's surge in popularity after the notorious cliffhanger of an episode, they were able to negotiate a contract that gave everyone what they wanted. They knew, after all, the show was destined for greatness and would be a serious moneymaker. Hank Williams Jr. wrote a song inspired by the show. One of country music's greatest legend used the show's subject material as a contrasting point for the family life he was trying to build in the song This Ain't Dallas. The song talks about how he just wants to be a hard-working man providing for his family. This ain't Dallas and this ain't Dynasty. This is a real-life, two-job working family. And I ain't JR, you ain't Sue Ellen, he sang, before describing how they don't have fancy cars and things, but they're just two people trying to hold this thing together. It's a rather sweet, touching song, actually. We apologize if it's now stuck in your head. Sorry, not sorry. In 1984, they made a Dallas video game. Now defunct game developer Datasoft released a game for the Commodore 64 called The Dallas Quest. The game's premise was pretty wild. Sue Ellen gives you a quest at the beginning of the game to go seek out a map that would lead to oil. As you fight off farm animals, angry Ewings, and even a monkey, where the heck did that come from, you eventually find the prized article in question, spoil JR's attempts to sabotage your mission, and receive a cool chunk of cash in the sum of $2 million as a reward for your heroic deed. Well, that wraps up our look at Dallas. What do you think about the communism thing? Do you think Dallas really had a hand in toppling the Soviet Union, or do you think it was purely a coincidence that the block fell right after the show was allowed to be aired there? Let us know in the comments what you think. Before you go, make sure you show us your support by liking this video, subscribing to our channel, and turning on notifications with the bell icon. Your support allows us to keep producing videos just like this.